So, it's election season once again. All elections are pivotal, of course, but 2022 is going to be a little bit more pivotal than most. Why? There are three reasons. One, we're in the crisis of our lifetimes. Two, the country's biggest broadcaster has been shut down. And three, technology has changed how we communicate. When you add all these up, what does it mean for us? Well, it means that in 2022 and beyond, social media will be the new campaign battleground.
A whole array of different kinds of attacks could be unleashed. This involves fake news and disinformation, conspiracy theories, but also digital harassment. And so these kinds of speech are all at play as part of like a broader set of digital weapons that politicians would want to be using and thinking would be strategic for them to gain advantage. Elections is high season for these kinds of digital expressions, and I don't think we are ready.
Jonathan Ong is an associate professor of global digital media at the University of Massachusetts Amherst in the US. He's a highly accomplished academic who has extensively studied disinformation networks and political trolling in the Philippines. He and his team have found that around the world, computer screens and smartphones are being hijacked to influence political outcomes. In order to understand how big the problem is, take a look at this statistic. Nearly everyone in the country has some sort of smartphone.
It's almost automatic, right? We turn to our phones when we're waiting in line for the bus, when we're bored at home or in the office. We even take it to bed with us. The fact is, we are all hopelessly addicted to our electronic devices.
According to data site Statista, there are now nearly 75 million Facebook users in the Philippines. Studies have found that we spend 4 hours on average on social media alone. In fact, sometimes when people buy smartphones, Facebook is already built in, right? And it's free. So in their eyes, Facebook is the internet. And that's a problem during elections because, to put it bluntly, politicians can get away with a lot online.
The fact that the law does not even really acknowledge the existence of social media, much less the existence of social media as a means of political campaigning. Normally, we're able to campaign in real life through physical presence. We're able to campaign through the printing of propaganda materials. We're able to campaign through broadcast media. And in all these three vectors, there are limits. There's spending limits, for example. You can spend only X amount of pesos per voter for printing propaganda materials. You can only spend so much time on TV and radio. You can publish an ad 3 times a week maximum, but none of these limits exist for social media. You know, in a very real sense, you put one ad out, you can ride that ad until election day. You can play that ad 24/7, right, on your space throughout the whole election period, and that's the main problem.
The law just can't keep up. In fact, the law is way too lenient. Have you ever heard of Section 13 of Republic Act 9369? It basically says a person can be considered a candidate for a political position only at the start of the campaign period for which he filed his certificate of candidacy. In other words, anything anyone does before February 8, 2022, which is when the campaign period officially starts for national positions, can't be counted as premature campaigning. We decided to look into who has started pumping money into Facebook, and here's what we found. Just one disclaimer up front. We're only showing you the top 8 spenders of the official pages. We're not even counting the spending by fans and supporters. The whole list is like 290 pages long. So Sherwin Gatchalian, a sitting senator, has spent more than 5.5 million pesos on ads promoting himself just in the last 12 months. Loren Legarda, a former senator who has already voiced her intent to run for a Senate seat again in 2022, has spent more than 2 million pesos on ads. That doesn't include spending from her fan pages. Ping Lacson, also a sitting senator, has spent more than 2 million pesos on Facebook ads too. Lacson has declared he will be running for president next year. Technically, none of these politicians can be charged with premature campaigning because, as we said, according to the law, a person is only a candidate during the campaign period. Even if they file their certificates of candidacy in October, they technically still won't be considered candidates. So even though the names on this list have all signaled their intent to run for office again, and in fact are already trying to polish their image online, guess what? They don't have to declare these in their Statement of Election Contributions and Expenditures, or SOSE.
And so their report for that regulatory period, it's in their best interest for that to be 100% honest. Because obviously, if it's 100% honest, then no one is going to come looking for hidden costs, right? Because it is honest. But is it really honest though? It isn't. Why? Because they're not reporting the expenses that happened prior to that regulatory period. As I said, they're on social now and they're incurring costs now. And these costs are directly related to their chances of getting elected. Now, theoretically, this is what should trigger regulation, the fact that it's being used to boost their chances to win. But it isn't. Right? Because regulation is triggered by a date certain. It's triggered by the start of the campaign period, which means everything you put out on social media, you could put out a feature-length movie on social media today, and it would not be part of your Statement of Contributions and Expenditures.
Facebook is well aware of the problem. In a statement, it said, "Using lessons from the past and input from experts across the world, we've made substantial investments in people and technology to better fight interference, reduce misinformation, and combat voter interference." In fact, we found out who was paying for ads this early through Facebook's ad library, which is available to the public. The tech giant also requires political advertisers to complete an ad authorization process. For transparency, those ads will be attached with a quote-unquote paid-for by disclaimer. All ads are reviewed through a combination of artificial intelligence and human review. And Comelec says Facebook has been cooperative.
I'm actually looking forward to reaching out to them again to cooperate with them for the 2022 elections. They have in the recent past shut down a lot of networks that have been peddling in fake news, and I think what they call this coordinated inauthentic behavior. And a lot of those websites that they've closed are known to us to have been vectors for misinformation in previous elections, right? So they're doing a whole lot more than they used to.
But premature campaigning isn't the only problem we're up against. A more insidious problem is disinformation, fake accounts, and trolling. And given that millions lost jobs in this pandemic, experts are worried that more people may be tempted to join the dark side. There's also the fact that with ABS-CBN shut down, tens of millions in political money are expected to gravitate towards digital.
The idea that candidates need to be investing in their social media armies has been drilled down because of the examples of previous elections. Duterte used a lot of social media. It seems to have worked. Maybe they can use it themselves. And now, hindi lang isang panig, but lahat ng kandidato nag-i-invest sa social media. In the context of COVID, the 2 to 3 million pesos operation was for a national level senatorial candidate. This was the amount that was shared with us for our 2016 election study. And then the intention was ipapa-viral one particular hashtag on Twitter and then with the support on Facebook. So this only consisted of 6 influencers, but 6 influencers who were operating. One person was operating at least 3 fake accounts each, and each account has over 20 to 50,000 followers on Twitter at that time. And so, hindi sila celebrity. These are what we call micro-influencer accounts. These are parody accounts, mga love quotes accounts, and iba-iba yung character nila based on the kind of message. As well, for a politician, they will use the kind of a love quotes account or the positive account for more promotional and positive ads. And then the bitchy, snarky, fictional character account will be used to attack a rival candidate. So, minamatch nila yung campaign objective and yung tone based on the personality of the account.
There are many ways they manipulate opinion. The most popular ones are seeding false stories and content, generating fake likes and comments to make their sponsors seem more popular than he or she is, mounting smear campaigns against rivals, posting clickbait stories that only lead to ad farms, and lastly, buying admin rights to a popular page and then changing its name and content drastically. For example, Facebook has found instances wherein pages that were initially set up for health and beauty topics were then changed to promote political parties later on.
It's just like that game Whack-A-Mole, isn't it? You shut down one site, but many more keep popping up. And by the way, the people behind this, they're just like you and me.
Jonathan's research has found that the so-called architects of disinformation are usually elite advertising and PR strategists. They're the ones crafting the message. That then gets disseminated through influencers and celebrities, and then further amplified by middle-class workers who need side gigs or rackets because their jobs don't pay enough. And that's how they justify this kind of work. Or sometimes, they don't even know what they're signing up for.
Baka hindi nyo rin alam when you get recruited. You might sign up to become a graphic designer. You might sign up to be a content producer. You might sign up to be a community manager online. These are what I call euphemisms. And then during elections, actually, pinapagawa ka ng fake account. Pinapagawa ka ng attack meme. Pinapagawa ka ng smear campaign against a rival candidate. So, election is high season for all kinds of political attacks and smears, but you will never be called a troll. You will be called a much nicer job label when you get recruited to these projects.
All of these problems have compounded over the years, and it's still the wild, wild west out here, and we're trying to do the best we can.
So as you can see, social media has become the go-to place for influencing voting behavior. And it's not only happening in the Philippines, even America can't get a handle on it. One thing though that everyone agrees on is this: it's going to take a whole of society approach to fix this problem. That means government, that means the big tech companies, that means civil society and journalists like me, but most of all, that means you.